Mom splits hairs with nanny to save a few dollars and ends up back paying hundreds. Karen and Ken are wealthy and extremely stingy. Their kid is Bob. Henry is an extremely sweet, generous single dad who lost his husband a few years ago and dotes on his son Steve. I have been a nanny for several years now, and for the most part, I've worked with lovely, reasonable families. I have contracts for every family that guarantees the hours that I work, meaning if a family goes on vacation, I still get paid because I'm technically available to work, but they chose not to use my services. Think gym membership, where you pay regardless of whether you've been to the gym in a month. This is standard on nanny contracts. Another bit on my contract is called the nanny share. So if two of the families want to combine the day, each of them pays 2/3 of my regular pay rate. I get paid a little more for watching more kids, and they save a little, only paying a portion of what they would have paid. Karen and Ken's family went to Hawaii 3 weeks ago, and per my contract, I was to be paid as usual. Before they left, they asked if I could come in and watch the Bob the Sunday after they returned, so that they could recover and rest. I agreed, and my hours were set at 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. that Sunday. They went on the trip, everything was wonderful, and they texted me when they landed saying they would see me at 8 a.m. The next day, when I was about to head out the door at 7:30 a.m., I received a text saying that Bob was just waking up. So I should just show up at 8:30 instead. After the day of nannying, Karen asked me if I would stay past my regular hours during the upcoming week so that they could have 2 date nights. I agreed, and Karen said she would reimburse me for all the extra hours at the end of the week, since it'd be easier just to make one payment. Totally fine with me. The week finished and I ended up staying an extra 8 hours total for the 2 date nights. I asked Ken to pay me for 16 hours, but he said he had to talk to Karen first to double check hours and would pay me shortly. When I got home, I received a text from Karen saying, "Hi OP, thank you so much for covering for us these past few weeks. Ken and I are feeling refreshed, and the show was hilarious. Since we were in Hawaii, you were paid for an entire week while you weren't working. We don't think this is quite fair, as it is a large sum of money, so we'd like to apply some of those hours to your babysitting today and yesterday. We will pay you for 8 hours instead." I was furious. I screenshotted the part of my contract that plainly stated I would be paid for any hours that their family was on vacation, and I reminded her that it was in violation of contract. She reluctantly agreed, and I texted that it would be a total of 16 hours. Karen instantly replied and went off, texting, "On Sunday, we ask you to come at 8:30, not 8. We are already being generous and paying you for the holiday we took. We expect you to track your hours better next time. This is unacceptable. You need to be as accurate as possible with the hours that we are paying you. We will pay you for 15.5 hours. Readers, this was a difference of $12.5. I was going to forward the part of my contract that said any rescheduling need a 24-hour notice, but instead I went nuclear. Bob has been tagging along with Steve and me to music class and soccer twice a week outside of Karen's regular contracted hours since January. Karen has never offered to pay for those hours, but Henry was fine with paying his full rate for those hours because Steve was having trouble making friends at school and had become close to Bob. I chose not to say anything about the slight bump in pay because I loved watching them play together. Malicious compliance time. As Karen stated, I needed to be as accurate as possible. I calculated all the hours that Bob has joined us since January, 6 hours per week times 18 weeks. And the total amount they owed was almost $2,000. In the group chat with Karen, Ken, and Henry, I said, Karen stated that it was of utmost importance that I tracked the hours as accurately as possible. So I took it upon myself to double-check everything, including the share hours. Thank goodness I did! I didn't realize we had forgotten to track all the hours that Bob joined us for soccer and music. Henry, I am so sorry. Karen actually owes you quite a bit of money. If my calculations are correct, they owe X dollars to you and X dollars to me. Henry replied, Karen and Ken, I am so disappointed to hear that OP hasn't been compensated properly this entire time. I don't need my hours to be refunded because I wanted Steve to continue his playdates, but you need to pay OP portion immediately. I got a huge chunk of money I wasn't expecting, and I am now on the hunt for my next nanny family. I'll be putting my 2 weeks notice with Karen and Ken as soon as I do. No maps? I can do that. So my father and I have had a stilted relationship for a long while. But in recent years, he has been trying to extend an olive branch, and I've been trying to accept. This is confounded by the fact that, presented with any difficulty, he reverts to the bullheadedness that was a large part of breaking our relationship in the past. Normally, we take a small vacation once a year or two, just a father and son, to some mutual interest place. Typically, I do my level best to be driving for at least one leg of the trip, as otherwise I would have to sit through 2 legs driving barely at the speed limit. Now, a quick aside that's very relevant. My father has always been very proud of being technologically adverse and slow to adopt new technology, to the point where he exulted over having a smartphone with GPS in 2020. He preferred and prefers a more hands-on way of doing things, such as consulting a physical map to see which roadways are needed to be taken in order to get to a destination. That was fine growing up, but in the modern era, that thinking is just time wasting, in my opinion and experience. Yes, if you are in an area with no coverage, you're out of luck, but offline maps exist for a reason. I digress. On our most recent trip, my father was lamenting to me about how the youth of today cannot function without our device in our hands, and how he misses being able to take a trip into the wild. Wild roads, that is. No one in our family has ever been a fan of camping, with merely his sense of direction and general sense of roads being his guide. He bemoaned how I barely even pay attention to street signs, relying almost entirely upon maps telling me when to turn, and that we're all living far too fancily, or something. Now, normally, I just tune out his extended trends on the decline of society and the flaws of the youth of today, but this trip I was feeling rather malicious, as he had previously brought up some of his annoying acts that had initially soured our relationship. So as I made it downtown near where I worked and where I know 100% of the streets, I leaned over and switched off the GPS and calmly drove over the river into the next county. Cue an absolutely mental breakdown from Father Dearest, who demanded to know why I had done that, and a generally sad wailing on how we were now utterly lost and how would we make it back to society. I am slightly exaggerating here, since this was a couple years ago and I don't exactly remember what he said. I turned to him with the widest grin I could muster and asked in the sweetest butter wouldn't melt in my mouth voice, "I thought you didn't like using GPS." Quite unfortunately, he didn't get the hint, or was panicking too hard to, and just stridently demanded that I turn the GPS back on. Unfortunately, deprived of maps as I was, I had to guess where a U-turn would be, and after a couple false starts, I found a nice place to flip back, 5 miles from the river. As stated before, downtown is my wheelhouse, so once we made it back, I just calmly dropped him off at his hotel, no harm done. I don't really have a satisfying ending, but hopefully, I don't get any more rants on the uselessness of GPS. I love it. Oh, well done. But honestly, I think the skill of using paper maps is very important. I think of it as of extra option of a kind. But to be honest, I cannot really read them for the life of me. Make this pack of beers fit in that fridge. They don't fit. We were going camping 40 years ago. We had a pop-up trailer with a built-in mini fridge with a sink and cooktop. My dad said, "Put these beers in the fridge." I took the beers, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was a 12-pack on long neck glass bottles. I opened the fridge and put the beers in. They didn't all fit. I put them all upright. I guaranteed that the door could close and that none would fall out when you opened the fridge. There were some in the door where condiments go. It was pretty full. I reported back. They were angry when they heard that they didn't all fit. They commanded that I go back and put all the beers in the fridge and not to come back until that was done. Could the beers still be on their side with the fridge door still closing and I could stack them up? No. Could I put beers that are upside down with the beers that are right side up? It wasn't stable. I worked at it for a while since I didn't have a time limit. I like geometry. I'm good at math. I like puzzles. Still, it could not be done. I was satisfied that volume of the beer challenged the volume of the fridge and that there were possible alternative unstable stacking method that could get some more bottles in there, but woe to anyone who opened the fridge because the cascade of beers would be impressive. Feeling confident, I reported back that the request could not be done. They were enraged. It strikes my adult self that I should have just reported victory and hid the other beers somewhere else in the camper until there was room in the fridge. Maybe I should have drunk the ones that didn't fit. I was young though, didn't think of that. They were so mad. I had to go back and fit them all in the fridge. Okay then. I went for an unstable arrangement of beers and worked at it for some time until I could just slam the door closed in time to form a seal. Eventually, they opened the booby trap door. The camper was not level. As the door opened, the beers all rolled out of the fridge in a rush for the open door of the camper, like salmon jumping free when the dam is released. But they crashed in pools of broken glass and beer on rocks. My dad caught a few like an Alaskan bear on the river. He got like 2 in each mitt. I expected to be yelled at again, but no. Strangely, the worst of it was reporting the news that they didn't fit and not an aftermath of the Great Beer Migration. I love it! Great Beer Migration. I think I will change my nickname to that. Unleashing revenge on a wild Karen. Some background. In my neighborhood, there is a small complaint of Karens who have in the past told people that they were the neighborhood watch. This mainly consisted of annoying folks with dogs who'd play fetch in the small center circle park. The Karens would freak out if a big dog was running around loose that could potentially harm their little yap dogs. Then they'd totally flaunt their watch power once they'd cleared out everybody else's doggies, and that's when they'd declare the center circle a small dog park and let all their pampered pooches run around off-leash. Well, I didn't care so much until I was gifted a 65-pound Staffy Boxer mix. He was so intelligent and I had high hopes of training him to be a fine canine gentleman. So we began with walkies. Staffy and I did absolutely nothing but walk past the unauthorized dog park. But Karen flipped out. She was outraged that I'd bring a dangerous banned breed to threaten her tiny terrors, because they were the ones barking their full heads off. So she tried to pull fake neighborhood watch rank. That I checked. She wasn't a watch. And my dog wasn't banned from anywhere. So long story short, Karen lied. She told the manager that Staffy had been loose and attacked her Pekingese pup. Sadly, Staffy had to be rehomed. Now, I didn't take that sitting down. Part of my revenge was to report the illegal dog park and get it shut down. But the best thing happened yesterday. Her dog attacked me! While heading out for errands on my e-bike, I slowly passed Karen, who was walking a trio of mini dust mops down the street. As per usual, she let the little monsters bark and snap at me, and one lunged at my pants leg, nearly throwing itself under my wheel. "Shut up!" I yelled at it, and opened the throttle to get away from those diminutive demons. Funny, the barking was still pretty loud. And there was a clattering sound too. Looking to my rear right, there was a deranged doggo chasing me, still after my pants leg, and dragging his retractable leash behind him. Woohoo! Karen was crying, "Stay! Stay!" But her spoiled pet had heard the call of the wild, and was experiencing the unbridled thrill of the hunt. So I went faster and let him chase me for 2 blocks until he pooped out. I cannot wait to call animal control tomorrow. Oh, it breaks my heart that you had to rehome your dog. Karen enjoys the view. Had a short encounter with a Karen at lunch today. It's a gorgeous day out, so I decided to walk the downtown where I work. Unfortunately, it's also windy out today. While I was idling the minutes watching a pair of angry sparrows have it out in a nearby tree, a particularly strong gust of wind hit unexpectedly and blew my skirt up. I pushed it down with my hands, but it was too late. Karen had seen me. She was exiting her car nearby with her teen daughter and scowled at me. "Your entire butt is hanging out!" I paused, still engrossed in the battle of the sparrows, and took a moment to register what she said. I glanced down at my blouse and knee-length black skirt with a shrug and replied, "Well, enjoy the view, I guess?" Her daughter busted a laugh and Karen's scowl deepened as she started to scurry across the street, shouting back, "It's called having some class!" Not the first time a Karen has come after me for my plump rump, and it surely won't be the last. I guess the next time I come to the office, I should leave my butt at home. A quick story about Karen behind the wheel. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. Last Sunday, after a small dinner party at one of my relatives' house, it was about time to go home. That night, I took my mother home, as it was on the route to mine. At one point, we turned right into a one-way street before arriving, and that's when a wild Karen in a red Toyota appeared. As it turns out, I had to hit the brakes hard enough as she almost face plants her car into mine, so to speak. Yet, she honks frantically, flips me off and yells something at me, which I couldn't distinguish because I had my windows shut. My mother and I were like, "What the heck?" And that woman drove off. That Karen was brave, or fool, enough to go the wrong way, almost colliding with us and even throwing insults. We eventually arrived at my mother's house, shaking our hands at this scenario we just had. Today, I went to my mother's place again, as we were to pick one of my nephews to the hospital because of a harsh fever. And on the exact same corner, I saw the same Karen, but this time yelling at the repo dude as her car was towed. I recognized the same red Toyota car that almost rammed into us, because its left rearview mirror was one of the countless cases of, if you cannot fix that with duct tape, you ain't using enough duct tape. After picking up my mother, she got me the gossip that the Karen woman recently moved around that area and was rather known for being rude and violent to pretty much every neighbor under the sun. Her car was towed because someone needed to leave to work. Her car was blocking the driveway. And she didn't give a damn about moving it out of the way. I just concluded and told my mother, "Treat everyone the way you would like to be treated." Or in other words, don't be a Karen, or karma will bite you in your butt. Karen at theater gets instant karma. My husband and I went to the Nikki Glaser show last night. We took our seats just before the first act started, and we were sat next to a couple that looked to be in their 60s or so. My husband quickly pulls out his phone, dims the screen all the way down to text his brother, who was also at the show. We were supposed to be seated together. It was really strange that we arrived to find out we were apart. This lasted about 10 seconds and was at the very beginning of this woman's set. Karen next to me leans over a bit to get my attention, looks me squarely in the face, and at full volume says, confrontationally, "Can you put your phone down? It's distracting and I paid good money for these tickets." I responded with, "I'm not holding a phone." She then leans over me to address my husband in the same way. Meanwhile, all around us, people are taking their seats, ushers are pointing their lights at aisles, other people are talking and on their phone and settling in. So after she addresses us like this, my husband and I quietly say, "Wow, that was weird." And then she doubles down and goes all in. "Maybe you need to remove yourself and find different seats." To which I calmly reply, "Nope, we're good. We are ready to have a great night. Are you good?" Well, this incenses Karen. She tells me that she will have us thrown out and that she's going to speak to an usher. Her husband then motions with his hands for her to bring it down a notch. Karen is not backing down. She hails an usher over, tells her size of the events, and then the ushers looks at us and says, "You think you guys can work it out?" To which I give a thumbs up and we're good. Karen goes silent. Defeat is a bitter pill to swallow. Not 5 minutes later, a couple sits down in the row behind us and begins to loudly talk throughout the entire show. They are cackling, talking about their dinner, saying things back to the comedians, the works. Karen wanted to go all in on these folks. She turned around a couple times to give them an evil eye. But she knew she could not escalate things with an usher. My petty bot just enjoyed her being genuinely distracted by these folks. After going so hard on us initially, it seems she should have bitten her tongue for the actual rudeness she encountered later. Honestly, it really surprises me that Karen didn't just stand up and walk over to those guys and be like, "You shut up! I paid money for the tickets!" I think my family are entitled. As the title says, I am 23 and I am the oldest out of my parents' kids. I live with my brother who is 20, with my sister who is 16, and the youngest brother who is 10. I have been essentially caregiver to these kids for as long as I remember, and when I cannot be a caregiver, they say that I'm selfish. I have a rocky relationship with my parents. I don't talk to my stepdad, and I resent my mother, since apparently it's my job to work around my own work schedule to keep an eye on the youngest when he is not in school, because the other siblings are too busy. I want to move on with my life and saving to leave, but it's taking longer than expected because stuff keeps coming up, such as I needed to get my wisdom teeth removed, or I'm sick, etc, etc. My main problem is my 20-year-old brother. He never changed. As a kid, he would be, I want, and of course he would be given whatever he wants. Now he's an adult and it's still the same. He cannot keep money and expects me to cough it up to him. Or he's never home, so I'm left to look after his 2 cats. Might I add, he moved out for 6 months and came back with 2 cats, but doesn't look after them, leaves his keys at home every night and expects I'll wake up and let him in at 2 a.m. every morning while I have to work at 7 a.m. 6 days a week, most of the time. For example, it bothers me that even my parents do not say anything about his behavior. He expects us to rub around after him all the time, top up his card for public transport, feed and look after his cats. He doesn't clean up after himself, and of course we gotta walk on eggshells around him, because one wrong word or sentence and he will start a massive argument. Last time, a really big one happened with my stepdad, who is his dad, and they got into a physical fight, and that's the last time they have talked. He does just waltz into my job asking for me, and then demands free food of me from there, which I don't exactly agree with. And then there is my mother. My mother hasn't lifted a finger around the house in I don't know how long. I do the cleaning and cooking for everyone as soon as I get home from work at like 5 p.m. Nobody lifts a finger despite my protests. My parents do work, but only to really contribute towards their own wants, like luxuries that they do not exactly need. I don't know, I just feel they're entitled and take advantage of me. Well, they are entitled and they are taking advantage from you. I don't feel that anything can be changed here, so for me, the best strategy would be just save up enough money and move away. I know it says these deposits are non-refundable. I have been tattooing professionally for close to 2 years, and this is my first time dealing with this particular situation. While I fully understand why individuals are reluctant to have a newer artist working on them, I have also seen experienced artists mess up and/or screw people over. I had a young man and his father come into the shop recently. This was my second time speaking with them. The adult-age son wanted a relatively easy piece on his forearm, consisted of only lettering, a little line work, and some generic cloud shading. They did not ask for a specific artist. and they put a deposit down with me for an appointment initially set for today. The young man's mother contacted me yesterday, explained that they had an event coming up and she didn't want tattoo plastic wrap present in the event photos and wished to reschedule. Weird excuse, but not a problem. I attempted to reschedule him twice before speaking with the mother again today. The mother began with, "It says right on the appointment card that these deposits are non-refundable, but I thought I would ask." She then went on to state that individuals online said go in and ask for the owner, so her husband and son were supposed to ask for the owner, but whoever just threw you up there, the owner was not even there either time they came in, and the owner was not mentioned. She kept stating that she was aware I was new and wanted someone more experienced, like the owner, doing her adult-age son first piece, since it was bigger. Again, it was a simple piece. At one point, she even asked, "Are you still an apprentice or what?" When I informed her that I had been taking my own clients for well over a year now, she only said, "Yeah, see, I'd like someone with more experience to do it." I offered to transfer the deposit over to more experienced artist, the exact one she was asking for, and she stated that she just liked the deposit back. She stated a second time that she was aware that the deposit was non-refundable, but that she just thought she would ask. I told her at this point that the owner retains half of the deposit, so I'd have to discuss the potential return with him. And she asked in a rather rude tone, "Okay, should I expect to hear back from you tonight then, or should I be contacting him myself?" If I were you, I would do nothing. I would just keep the deposit as it states on the booking card, because they are not coming back for the tattoo to any artist. Just spare yourself of this time wasting. Customer has thrown bottle of engine oil at me, and it did not end well. When I was 20 years old, I worked for an auto parts company. I was a cashier ringing customer up on a busy day. I'm usually laid back and very lenient when it comes to returns, due to the customer is always right or some crap. A guy walks in with the battery, places a battery on my counter, and selects 1 quart of engine oil. The man comes back to the counter and tells me that he needs to return this battery for warranty, due to it is not holding a charge. Immediately, I recognize the brand of battery, which is a brand that we do not sell. In fact, our rival company sells it. I had explained this to the customer, but he was not having it. He said he knows he bought it here and was demanding a refund. I tell him again, I'm not going to refund something that wasn't sold at this store. Then I call the rival auto parts store, take down the man's information and see if it was purchased at one of their locations. The store verified that indeed it was purchased at one of their locations and that it was still under warranty. I tell the customer this and still he is not having it. He tells me I need to do my effing job. I replied to him sternly, but still in a professional manner, I am doing my job. I am actually going above and beyond my job. So I could easily say you didn't have a warranty and just tell you another battery. I have no business calling my rival company for something like this, so I went out of my way to tend to your needs. And you are still telling me I need to do my job? If you can tell me how that makes sense, I will give you a battery. The customer had no answer and began to berate me verbally and cussing me out, saying he's going to come back with a pew and handle business. He also commented on my physique and said that steroids are affecting my brain, and that's the reason why I don't know how to do my job. I was in decent shape as a 20-year-old. Due to not having a social life, I would spend 8 hours at work, go home and study. I also frequented at a gym a lot. I would spend 8 hours at a local MMA gym, just lifting weights, boxing, jiu-jitsu, and a couple other things. I enjoyed every minute of it, and it kept me out of trouble. Going back to the incident, the man then made a comment as to I need to smile more often when talking to customers. At this point, I was already irritated. I responded with, well, how about I just effing tap dance for you? And then started tap dancing in front of him. I was about a foot away from him when this happened. The man proceeded to throw the quart of oil in my face hitting me in the nose, I immediately reacting with the front kick to his chest. The kick pushed him back a bit, so he began to rush me. I dipped my right shoulder forward and brought my left elbow to his nose. It was like a modified spinning back elbow. I can feel that man's nose crack on my elbow. The customer fell down and began to cry, with blood dripping from his nose. When this happened, magically my line of customers got shorter and a few had switched to another register lines. I helped the next customer with no issue. Then I thought to myself, I should probably call the cops. I told my store manager about the incident and he called the cops. My store manager was a friend of mine and trained with me at the gym. He pulled up the video and commented how my foot placement needs work. Police arrived and the man began annoying me for assaulting him. But the customers vouched for me and the footage on the camera matched the customer statements, so the guy was arrested for aggravated assault. The police officer that stayed behind to get the video evidence kept rewinding in the video and laughing. As the customer was leaving in handcuffs, he kept repeating that he's gonna come back for me. The police officer asked my store manager if he wanted to report the guy for trespassing. The store manager left it up to me and I said, nah, let him come back. A little bit after that, I left that job, I joined the military, served for 10 years, and then became a cop in a small town. My soon-to-be wife was also at the store when the whole thing happened. She later revealed to me that the same guy had tried to get her phone number and then called her an insult for saying no to him and said if he took her now, the cops wouldn't do anything because she was illegal. What a disgusting man. Oh my god. I'm really happy that he got his karma. Well done, OP. How do I deal with my entitled friend? I have this friend in college I've known for 3 years, and we've always been in the same classes. She does this incredibly frustrating thing where she expects me to remind her of her own responsibilities every time an assignment is due or our shared class is about to start. If I don't remind her, she sends me passive-aggressive messages like, "Thanks for reminding me about the homework, by the way," or "Can you believe it? Class has started and nobody thought to call me." She pulls this with her other friends as well, but they usually apologize and make excuses for not reminding her, which seems to get her off their backs pretty well. And I could do that too for the sake of my own peace of mind, but I refuse to apologize for something that is not my responsibility. I don't want her to think that this is her right, even for a second. I also know that, sure, I might have accidentally set a high standard for her the way I used to call to remind her about assignments and would even send her homework answers at times. But the difference is that I did it willingly. I don't know why it translated into her head that she is now my job. A bit of background about her is that she's spoiled at home. She has an older sister who's about 6 years older and has always done everything for her. But that's not my problem. I don't remember signing up to be her caretaker. We're both adults, and she's about 2 years older than me. So it's not like I have a maturity advantage over her that makes me responsible of her. So how do I tactfully deal with entitled behavior? You can do the exact same thing as she does. When she messages you with, "Oh, nobody reminded me about the assignment," you can be like, "Oh, right, I was not reminded either." So maybe this way she will get the hint. Aunt broke my model kit, so I took away her everything. I live in Turkey, and as you know, southeast of my country was wrecked by a couple of giant earthquakes a year ago. My city was the epicenter, and while the house I lived with my family wasn't destroyed, a lot of shelves got knocked off, and one of them was the one where I held my Gonpla kits. Out of all the kits I had, only one survived, an AMG the O that was heavily customized. I had built it with my grandfather who passed away a few years ago, so I was ecstatic it survived. A few months after everything has come down, so my mother called her relatives for dinner, which included Aunt B. Not for B as an annoying woman, but her name does start with the letter B. She came alongside her son, who is 8 and is an entitled brat. While the adults were drinking coffee, this little brat barged into my room and demanded to play with my computer, which I refused since I was editing a video for my college society and had the camera on. Well, the brat went back crying to her mother, who came and started yelling at me. While I was dealing with her, little brat climbed my desk and took my model kit, then immediately dropped it and stepped on it. Rest is just yelling, me swearing them up and down and telling them they gonna pay for it, with her calling me a weirdo for still having toys and that she wasn't gonna pay for anything. My mother was at first bit not into making her pay to keep peace, but when she realized that it was the kit I made with my late grandfather, her father, she was angrier than I was and went out for blood. We took the case to a friend of ours who is a lawyer that specializes with in-family cases. And they told us since my camera caught it all, we would definitely win, but it was better to come to an agreement out of court in a settlement since it would be cheaper. I pulled out a price list of the kits I needed to make an exact replica of the one that was destroyed, and it came just about $1,000. Well, she refused, so she took her to court. She pulled all kinds of bullcrap not to pay and delay, but the judge ended up making her pay $1,650 plus an order for her to pay any border taxes on the replacement kits alongside the court and lawyer fees. It completely hacked up her savings, and her husband, who was already waiting for a chance to divorce her, took it. When it all ended up, she had nothing and even lost her brat's custody to her ex-husband. And she not only lost the down payment she had for a house, she lost all her savings and didn't get alimony from her husband. Am I happy her life got completely hacked? No, not really. Do I feel sorry it happened? Not in the slightest. She and her crotch gobbling hacked around and found out. It's that simple. I feel bad for her husband though. He's gonna be the one trying to make the brat into a normal person, and I do not envy that in the slightest. The only question I have about this story is, why do you need your camera on if you're editing the video? Neighbor ruined my garden. I turned his yard into a swamp. Get ready for a wild ride, folks! This is the story of how my battle with neighbor over my beloved garden led me to transform his pristine yard into a swamp, and in the process I became a local legend. It all started when I moved into a new house, which came with a small but charming garden. Gardening quickly became my passion, and I spent months turning that space into a blooming paradise full of flowers and a few veggies. My neighbors seemed to appreciate the view, all except one. Let's call him Grumpy Greg. Grumpy Greg was the kind of guy who took too much pride in his perfectly manicured lawn, the type that looks more like a golf course than a yard. He despised my garden, calling it untidy and an eyesore that attracted pests. I tried to reason with him, offered to keep it more contained, even suggested setting up a small fence, but no, Greg wanted it gone. One morning, I woke up to find most of my garden destroyed. Flowers uprooted, veggies trampled, and my small bird bath smashed. I knew it was Greg. No proof, but who else would it be? I was furious, heartbroken, but then inspiration struck. I remembered Greg's one true love, his flawless lawn. I did some research and found the perfect, most diabolical, yet completely legal revenge. I bought hundreds of water retention crystals, the kind meant to help soil retain moisture for plants. Except I wasn't planning on using them for their intended purpose. Under the cover of night, I went to work, spreading those crystals all over Greg's precious lawn. These tiny crystals are harmless, but when they come into contact with water, they expand, holding many times their weight in water. And wouldn't you know, the forecast predicted a week of heavy rain starting the next day. The rain came, and the crystals did their job too well. Greg's perfect lawn transformed into a squishy, waterlogged mess. Every step taken on the grass felt like stepping on a waterbed. The lawnmower got stuck, and the yard had become the neighborhood's newest swamp. Greg was livid, blaming everyone and everything for his misfortune, but couldn't prove a thing. It took weeks for the effects to wear off, and by then his lawn never truly recovered. In the meantime, I rebuilt my garden. even better than before. Neighbors who learned about the ordeal and Greg's role in destroying my garden came to help, bringing plants, seeds, and even a new birth bath. My garden became a symbol of the community, a place where neighbors would stop by to chat and admire the flowers. As for Greg, he became a lot less grumpy, especially after I casually mentioned how unpredictable gardening can be and how it's important to have good relationships with your neighbors. He got the message loud and clear. So that's the tale of how I turned a bully's yard into a swamp, and in the process united our little community. Sometimes a bit of creative thinking and a whole lot of water retention crystals is all it takes to stand up to a bully and come out on top. It is a rare day when you can find such a wholesome story on a revenge subreddit, so I'm happy today. Disrespect me? I will ruin your whole damn career. So my old boss, beloved by all, left the company last year. While they were trying to find a replacement, upper management decided that the person in charge of another department should be our boss. For the time being, of course. This person, let's call her Dina, does not have a single iota of information of what anyone on this team does. Nor does she want to learn what we do. Fine, whatever. Just let me do my work, get my money, and leave me alone. This issue comes in when she suddenly decides that we are disrespecting her with everything we do. Not early enough to a meeting? 15 minutes is her latest earliest. Disrespect! Have to step away to use the restroom? Disrespect! Take your paid time off that's offered by the company? Disrespect! Finally, I have enough and start documenting every instance with proof and witnesses into a massive Excel sheet. At this point, sure, it's annoying and I'm passively looking for new work, but I've dealt with worse. The breaking point for me came during my yearly review. This is the first and hopefully only time I've ever been put on a performance improvement plan. I was told repeatedly that I was lazy and disrespectful, despite several clients providing positive feedback and me working until 10 p.m. most nights. But I keep quiet, I toe the line until I have a new job. Then I let the floodgates open. Now, something important to note is that while our former boss was great, we weren't all going to quit in solidarity with her. But me? Well, that's a bit of a different story. In addition to my job, I also worked to make my coworkers' jobs easier too. I was kind of the glue holding that entire team together. So when I quit, everyone else on my team did as well. And what did our team do, you might ask? Well, we supplied a service that brought in the majority of the revenue. With no one to supply the service, the business would head towards bankruptcy. Back to the story. When I put in my resignation, I decided to include the spreadsheet to provide further insight as to why I was leaving. And to top it all off, I decided to BCC the CEO. He and I are pretty close, and he's told me on multiple occasions that he would do anything to keep me employed here. When he found out about Dina's antics, he held true to his word, asked if he should fire Dina. Now, Dina may be a prick, but she has young kids and I am not a prick. So I told him no, but if anyone else leaves because of her, then he should rethink her employment. Well, my last day comes and goes, and the rest of the team puts in their resignations, effective immediately. Citing disrespect from Dina specifically. With no team to manage, CEO decides that Dina no longer has a place at the company and decides to fire her with no severance. How do I know? Dina decided to spam call me for several days, but my new fancy job is at a law firm, and I was able to get one of them to draft up a cease and desist. Haven't heard a peep since, and now I'm just enjoying my new gig, Dina free. Something tells me that OP is exaggerating somewhere in the story. If you're such a good friend with CEO, why you had so many problems at work? And I don't believe it's possible to just fire someone who is the head of a department effective immediately and with no severance. I say true, but maybe not completely. Am I the butthole for sending an email to the rest of the family about sister-in-law's behavior on vacation? My husband and I decided to bring our two kids to Disney World for 4 days, now that they are old enough to appreciate it. My husband and I are not in the best shape, so we decided to invite his sister and her husband along with us. So we have two separate rooms. We assumed we would spend the time in the park together, since it was, after all, a family vacation. The first day in the park, we all did a few attractions together, but then when we went to bring the kids to meet some characters, she said she and her husband had other things in the park they wanted to do and would meet back with us. We didn't see them until dinner after we watched fireworks together and then went back to the hotel. The second day we went to Epcot. They stuck around with us until the afternoon, but then we split up again to drink around the world. When we met up with them for dinner, they were clearly very tipsy in front of the kids. Very mature. When we got back to the hotel that night, I knocked on their door after the kids were asleep. I asked them if they're going to spend any time with the family on this vacation and told them running around an amusement park with kids all day is exhausting and we could use some help. She claimed the time they were spending with us was enough, but they wanted to do their own thing too. She made a rude comment that she didn't take days off of work to be our babysitter. The next 2 days, we didn't speak to them at all. They did their own thing and we did ours with our kids. We didn't see them again until the flight home, which was awkward. I was so upset that they ruined the experience for our kids who were looking forward to spending time with their aunt that when I got home, I wrote an email to our immediate family about the experience, and in the end, I told them this was the reason we would be going low contact with sister-in-law. I included the sister-in-law on email, sent it, and went to sleep. Woke up to a ton of angry texts from husband's family calling me ridiculous. I just assumed she would spend the time with family on family vacation. Clearly, she doesn't value family. Nah, I think what she doesn't value is being a free babysitter. Because never in this story you mentioned that you paid for their trip. So you basically assume that, well, I'm not in the best shape, so you will take care of my kids. Doesn't work like that. Am I the butthole for telling my wife she takes me for granted and to stop digging me out for not doing enough? For context, our son just turned 12 months, and my wife returns to work tomorrow after a year off of work. We are very fortunate as I work as a blue chip and make 6 figures, but often that means working away our 50 to 60 hour weeks. And so we have agreed that rather than her return full-time and put our son in nursery, she would only work 2 days per week and help raise our son 5 days per week. I get really effed off when my wife scoffs at me after she tries to assign me a job via a disingenuous question. For example, this afternoon, I asked if our son was due to a nap, and she replied, "Yes, do you want to walk him around the block?" I am pretty tired after catering at his birthday party yesterday, so I said, "Do you want to take him?" An argument ensued on how I don't do enough to help her with our son, with my main point being that she's our son's primary caregiver, and she hasn't worked for 12 months, she isn't returning to work full-time. We now pay her parents to clean our house. It's affordable due to my work. For context, I like to cook, so I cook all our dinners. As I say, cleaning is taken care of by somebody else. I've always helped with our son, whether it's changing nappies or feeding time, etc. Admittedly, she does much more than me, particularly whilst she was breastfeeding. But she quipped my view on us parenting is like something from the dark ages. Am I the butthole here? Feels like a cake and eat it situation. I guess it was a big revelation for you, but if you have a kid, you have to take care of him. You cannot just pay off someone to be his father. Am I the butthole for asking my husband to put his foot down when it comes to his daughter? I have been married to my husband for many years and have been a part of my stepdaughter's life since we began dating. We had the usual every other week custody with some mother. Stepdaughter has had behavioral issues for several years now and has done poorly in school since elementary school, not completing homework or turning it in, not doing well in tests, and never seeking help from teachers. She's on medication for ADHD and depression, also diagnosed with oppositional defiance. She lies and sneaks around. At our house, we have rules and consequences that all the kids follow. We have a total of 6 kids, 4 of mine from a previous relationship, and the youngest is ours together. When the stepdaughter is at her mother's house, there seems to be no rules of consequences, and mother constantly belittling her, calls her names, screams and yells at her, and using her to get status. Stepdaughter barely passed high school, and we were literally told 2 days before school ended that she was graduating. Now she has completed her first year of college unsuccessfully. She failed classes in both semesters and has continually lied about it. My husband also footed the bill for housing and food. We had a conversation this spring with her and she cried and cried on how she wants to take some time off and look for a job, but was also told to check with the college if she could take summer classes or what she needed to do to retake those courses. Here we are, summer, and from what we know, she probably hasn't done this and refuses to contact her father. When asked what she wants to do for a job, she didn't have any idea. Figured she can just work the bare minimum jobs where turnover happens all the time. No set plans, goals, or ideas for her future. Lease renewal is coming up and I keep harping on husband to cancel the lease since she refuses to tell anyone her plans. Why have a name on something that could damage your name and finances? Husband gets so mad when asked about it, but mad because daughter avoids any contact. At this point, the bridge is burned between myself and stepdaughter. I'm not going to listen to her pity party. Time to grow up and make adult choices and decisions, which my husband does agree to this, and says whatever those choices and decisions are, she will have to live with them and deal with the consequences. Gosh, you are a horrible person. Why do you hate your stepdaughter so much? Poor girl. She needs support. She doesn't need to be taught a lesson. Am I the butthole for trying to surprise my husband when he didn't want to? My husband just turned 32. I planned a spa treatment for him and a fun activity with our group of friends. I booked his calendar but didn't mention what it was. When he saw the invite, he said, "I don't want surprises. What are we doing?" I said, "I'm taking to a spa, then we have an activity with our group." I didn't mention what the activity would be because it's very original and we never did something like that. It was a trivia game actually in a real-life game show setting. I also personalized name tags for everyone with fun nicknames. I also paid extra to have personalized questions about him as a part of the game. I didn't want to spoil it and wanted to have a reveal on the day off. He didn't insist on knowing the activity. On the day off, like 3 hours before, he asked again and mentioned I don't want surprises. I told him there is no surprise in the sense of you know who is coming and you know that it will be a group activity. He said he doesn't want a surprise and he wants to know. It was not out of impatience or curiosity. It was out of, I don't want to be surprised and it doesn't matter to me. I will still enjoy it just the same. But in pressing and annoyed manner, I ended up crying because I've put a lot of effort into this and he just decided to insist a few hours before, not the first time I mentioned the activity. I told him everything and we had a fight about it. He says it seems like I'm making it about me. Am I the butthole for insisting to surprise him and he doesn't care? And there is an edit. We all love game nights with our friends. We love trivia. We enjoy it, not as an activity I came up with just for myself. In fact, it's my friend who suggested this place and we all came up with the nicknames for the tags together. We were all very excited to show him that we found a real-life spot to play games we play in our living room usually. I have no need for recognition from my friends as they were all involved. I also did not go out of my way to create questions about him. It was an option they offer for birthdays and bachelorettes, etc. It was silly questions such as, what age did he turn today? It was just for fun and nothing embarrassing or difficult. He is not anti-surprises. He was surprised before many times for his birthday, not just by me, and enjoyed it. He just said this year, I don't want a surprise. I don't understand the purpose of this post. Your husband said loud and clear, I don't want to be surprised. Please tell me what we're going to do. And you're like, oh no. Oh, you mistreat me. How dare you? Come on! I was so happy to get a car until I found out my parents got a dash cam to watch my every move. I just found out that my dad purchased a 4-camera dash cam to see everything I'm doing in the car. He said that now he can see who I'm going to pick up and what I'm doing. He said I cannot listen to music and also said if he hears me curse, he's going to take away my car for a week. I understand the benefits of a dash cam, but I was happy to get a car just so I could feel free and take a breather if things get too much for me. But no. They're going to watch me in the car too, and honestly, that ruins it. I cannot get no privacy at home either. My room is in the middle of the hallway and they make me keep my door wide open. That's why I'm so sad I cannot have privacy in my car. I'm literally always being spied on. Well, if you don't like it, you can give the car back. I don't really see any other option here, because I don't believe any amount of talking will change their mind. Entitled parent demanded we brought birthday gifts for all her kids, and not just the birthday boy. So my auntie has 2 kids. One is a boy who is a bit able and no trouble at all. He is 8, and my evil cousin, who is a girl and is 2. She wants everything. Seriously, if you have something and she doesn't, she holds her breath and won't breathe until she has it, and cries non-stop until she gets what she wants. Anyway, it was the 8-year-old's birthday and he was having a birthday party. However, my auntie told me it would be a party for the girl too, whose birthday was in December. There would be 2 cakes, birthday banners with her name on, and people would have to pretend it was her birthday too. Like, WTF? How is this fair to the actual birthday boy? Anyway, she also told everyone we had to bring gifts for both the kids, and if not, we were not able to attend because it had to be fair for both of them. I did not buy presents for both kids, but attended anyway, and it was something from my worst nightmare. Everyone was tending to the girl, and no one besides me acknowledged the actual birthday boy. People even sang happy birthday to her, taking pictures of her. She got lots of money, a new bike, etc. She got double of what the birthday boy got. I feel so bad for him and saw him crying in his room, so I went up and he said no one cares about him. So I argued with my auntie regarding this, and she said I have ruined the day and I need to leave. What an entitled woman and her horrid entitled bratty kid. As many people in the comments noticed that everybody would pay money to attend the birthday party to see the little girl hold her breath when she sees she didn't get the present. My aunt refuses to give me my social security card. I am gonna move out soon and she refuses to listen and believe me that she is legally required to give the person they are a guardian or a parent a social security card when they turn 18. I am 20 now and she still refuses to give it to me, even after I told her I have a friend willing to let me move in with them. I don't want to call the cops and get her in trouble. I just want her to give me my card back. It took me years to convince her to get my ID done and get my bank account made when I was in school. I don't want to get her in trouble with the law or anything like that. I just want her to let me be and stop trying to be controlling. If this does continue, should I get the cops involved? I just don't want to resort to that. And there is an update. I finally got her to give me my social security card back. I called the family friend who was a cop. They explained to her that it was illegal to keep it from me, but my aunt gave me one final comment about how she was only doing it because she thought I was not mature enough to have it yet. Thankfully, where me and my friend are moving are a few states away, and my aunt is too lazy to go that far. My mother is a single mom by choice, and we moved 14 times. Me and my mother moved 14 times from the day I was 5 to the day I was 18. I moved out by myself when I was 18 and have lived in the same apartment for over a decade. During these 10 years, she moved an extra 8 times. I also lived on and off with my grandparents from time to time when I was a teenager because I didn't want to switch school in the last years, because I finally got some nice friends for once and did not want to lose them by moving yet again. I am just wondering, is this normal? I can see myself moving with my girlfriend or she moving in with me, and then maybe after some time we have a child and need some more space. Then we move to a bigger space. But my mother is a crazy mover and have switched locations over 30 times in her own life since she was 18. It has got me thinking, how? Why? Is it even normal? Because for a long time I thought it was just normal to move 2-3 times a year. But whenever I visited my friends as a kid and understood that their parents have lived in the same place for some 15-20 years, it just got me miffed out. My mother wants me to help her move over and over. I am just so sick of it. And when I told her enough, she started yelling at me, saying I am ungrateful and that I do not understand how unlucky she is. But really? Is it just misfortune? Please tell me I am not crazy, because I am starting to think that my mother was up to no good and hid whatever reason she had to move from me very well. I guess we will never know why it really happened, but what I can say, no, it is not normal. Father reneged his promise and stole my computer. As a broke college student, I needed a computer to do my schoolwork. First semester, I took a PC repair course. I went to my father's house and made a deal. If I repair one of his 3 or 4 absolute and broken desktop PCs that he isn't using, I get to keep it. I bring my own tools, my own software, and my own copy of the operating system. I dismantle all the computers down to components and use the working parts to build one. I check out the system using my own diagnostic software and reload the operating system. 6 hours later, I am done and very satisfied with myself. My father comes in and tells me that he spoke to his wife, my stepmother, and she has decided that computer is needed for her children, my half-brothers, as a dedicated computer for internet use. Note that everyone in this house has a laptop that is more powerful than what I built, and my brothers are in high school. I called my dad out for lying to me and breaking his promise. He got offended and mad at me. I wait for both him and his wife to get ready for bed, and then I carry my PC that I just built out the door and do not say another word. Keep in mind, I was living on my own and paying for college out of my own pocket. He never paid for a single class or a book. Well, I guess enjoy your new computer? Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch that awesome video or this awesome playlist. See you next time!